what's the most common thing that you find startup founders who are targeting customers like DPR are missing or they are lacking?
Sometimes I think the challenge is, they don't understand, right? They understand the technology, they understand the value that the technology can bring, but they don't understand their customer, which is
The investment that you make within the startup ecosystem, what's the percentage, more or less, are the startups that you got the ideas or problems fed from your innovation department?
it works the other way around. I actually ask them to help me find a startup to help solve a problem. So the way our innovation group works,
Sort of problems has recently come up, or like what are you guys thinking of solving by searching for startups?
one thing that, we've noticed seems to be still a challenge.
How is technology actually used in AEC? In corporate innovations, we explore the innovation and implementation procedures used by those who actually use the tech on a day-to-day basis. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
So good. Very early morning, in fact, all the way from the West Coast. Kaushal, thank you for joining us at such this fine hour in the morning.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Cool. Okay, Kaushal, so we're going to talk a little bit today about DPR and WND Ventures. So could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved? Because I know you didn't actually, your early career was actually in the US Air Force, is that right?
That's correct.
And then you worked into construction, and now you're in, what should you call it, finance? I don't want to offend you.
No, so WND Ventures, it's a corporate venture capital for DPR Construction.
Cool.
Yes.
Go for it.
So my background was in the Air Force for about 13 years. Spent some time on active duty as well as reserves. And somewhere in between my reserve time, I got into construction. I've played pretty much every role in construction. My first job, I was an estimator. I've been a project manager. I've run self-performed crews of my own. But really most of my time I've spent on the technology side, where I'm leading virtual design and construction teams, through early stages of a building design. We're doing constructability coordination and analysis. That's actually what brought me to DPR. So I've been in the industry for close to 19 years now. I've been with DPR for almost 13 years. They're actually over 13 years. And, most of my career, the last 9+ years I've spent on innovation and venture capital, and a little bit of R&D here and there. So my role at DPR today, I lead our WND Ventures group. So this is a corporate venture capital arm for DPR Construction. We have about 13 startups in our portfolio. We make investments in construction technology startups. And our goal is to identify a partner who can help us solve some of our biggest challenges and problems in the business. And then if we find an alignment, mutual, value where I'm helping the startup and they're helping us, this is usually where we make a strategic investment in the company. That's my day job. I run the portfolio. I manage the team. I advise the CEOs. And then my role at DPR is I support our innovation and our R&D group. So our innovation team, their job is to partner with the startups. We do early proof of concept with these companies. Most of the time, my deal flow for the venture group comes from the innovation group as they are seeing which startups are the most effective. And then the second part of the role in DPR is I help support our R&D group. And the goal of the R&D team is internal, project developments, whether it's hardware or software. They also help manage our company's IP. So we, are securing patents through our R&D group. We have roughly 20 patents right now that are secured. We have 8 patents that are in different stages of development.
Okay. Kaushal, can you set the scene and give us a background about DPR and what type of business is it? Like what geographies do you cover and what type of product do you work on?
How big is the business as well? I roughly just remember a start.
Yeah. So in terms of revenue, it's roughly $10 billion business. And we perform in 5 different regions in the United States, as well as select countries, in Europe and Asia. We have roughly 12,000 employees, worldwide. And there are 10 other family of companies is what we call it, basically other entities that fall within, the business aside from the core construction business. So like WND Ventures would be considered a family of company.
And so where was the idea to establish WND as a venture arm of DPR? Like where did it come from originally?
It started out, I want to say, somewhere in the 2016 timeframe. 2017 is when it was actually established and formed. But as a venture group, our idea to support startups and founders, it was always there. Our innovation group actually was founded in 2011. Well before any company was thinking about establishing a corporate group like that. When we realized that the biggest value we can add to the industry is by supporting companies that have great ideas and can accelerate, digitization in the industry or automation in the industry. Those are the companies that we wanted to support. So our first investment actually happened in 2016 before WND Ventures was even formed. In that
what was it?
time,
is it successful?
Oh, it's very successful. Actually, Rumbix was one of our first investments, and Rumbix is an enterprise tool for DPR. We use it for time tracking for our craft. So we have 6,000 employees that are now being tracked through Rumbix for their timekeeping. In that time frame, the investment activity, venture capital activity, and construction technology actually rapidly took off. So once that happened, we decided to formalize, create an entity to support and manage our investments.
What was it, like purely opportunistic from like a venture point of view, or that was to support the existing business with kind of technology and new forms of doing things, perhaps?
It's more trying to financial gain, right, was not our number one priority. We have made investments where we've supported the startup and it's benefited our business operationally in a very big way. But the startup itself, did not turn out to be a good venture deal, right? For us, supporting our core business and helping solve our challenges and advancing the industry is more important than the financial part, as a corporate. But sure, yes, I do like to make good deals and not lose money. I don't think our CFO would be happy if I was losing money on every deal.
And are you, as WND, is DPR the sole LP, or there's some other LPs?
Yes, we're the only. It's investments are made on a balance sheet. We typically have a fund set aside every year to make strategic investments to support startup. And DPR is the only.
So why the different brand?
Good question.
It's a different entity to help us sort of house and manage all of our investments. So there's a more focused effort. If I keep it as part of the business, it's a good question, man. I don't know if I have a good answer for you, but I mean, the response is basically we want to manage it all in one place. House our risks, all the losses, all that could be better managed in a separate entity.
Yeah, I guess because in my head, maybe it thinks that that at the time of inception, maybe there is a plan to break away from DPR entirely, because having it say if you call it DPR Construction Venture Capital, then it's almost like you're tied to that forever. So at some point,
I don't think we would ever separate away from the core business. Matter of fact, our WND Ventures website is actually a link off of our main company website. And, we have discussed, do we get even closer to the brand by updating our logo to say, by DPR Construction? We decided not to do that, but at the end of the day, we want to be associated to the family business, core business, as much as possible.
yeah. And so are your investments all strategic, or do you invest also to get a return, but when perhaps the startup is not actually servicing DPR?
All of our investments, the startup, serve the construction industry, so they are all strategic. That's actually, one of the primary sort of part of our thesis is to invest in companies that would help the corporate.
And so do these startups then, so like thinking from a startup's position, if they are invested in by WND, does that restrict them mainly to only working with DPR?
That's a very good question. Owen, we've actually looked at it a few different ways. There have been times when we work with startups that their technology is so advanced that sometimes it only works for DPR, right? Where, we're a forward-thinking company. We leverage a lot of technology on our projects, and we have come in situations where the technology only works for us. In those situations, we try to steer away from the investment, because what I would like to see is not only does it work for us, but it also works for other, construction companies. Because in order for the startup to be successful, I would like to see them grow outside of just DPR. And so, when we evaluate these companies for investment, I look for that because I want to make sure I'm helping them be successful outside of DPR.
Yeah. What stages are you do you invest in, and what size of checks do you send? I don't know how you can say it.
Yeah, we try to focus on early stage, so seed level, Series A. Companies that are at that stage are usually where they need the most help. They're trying to grow, their product's trying to mature, they're still trying to fundraise in some cases. And there is room to help them sort of, they've got a little bit of traction with an MVP, but they still need help refining their product a little bit. This is where we can help them the most through our subject matter experts. So early stage is usually where we focus most of our time. In terms of check sizes, we focus, somewhere in the 250 to 500K range is our sweet spot.
Okay. So when a company receives investment from WND, are they then I don't know if the right word is seconded, but is there like a department within DPR that they're then kind of
work with?
Yeah, planted into, work with to develop the product and business, and then sort of rolled out through pilots or whatever else to projects?
Yeah, they actually work with me, my team. And so, myself, there's another individual named Yash, who's part of my team. Yash helped me manage the investment companies. And, we typically set aside, we have bi-weekly meetings, sometimes monthly meetings with these startup CEOs. And usually that's the time where we, get a chance to interact with them. I bring in business leaders and subject matter experts from the company to then help support, the startup. Usually what we do is we identify, opportunities to use their product on our projects. Several of our startups we're using, an active project where we identify, a project resource that's a champion, to help test the solution. And they work with our innovation team, to sort of help track, the progress. One example is a company called Hyperframe that's in our portfolio. We have our self-perform, leaders joining on these bi-weekly calls, and then we're not only giving them feedback on the product, but as that we're doing testing on our projects during install, we're trying to figure out and troubleshoot through workflows. What's the best way to package the frame? What's the best way to, have the crews identify which frame needs to be installed where, and we're giving them feedback on the technology and the software when they're using augmented reality to help install the frames. So successful in startups that are in our portfolio, the investment side, as well as operational side, I have found that it's important to have a business representative support, you with the calls and also providing feedback to these.
What's the most common thing that you find startup founders who are targeting customers like DPR are missing or they are lacking at these early stages?
You know, one thing for sure, the startup founders are very bright. They, very smart individuals. They sometimes have excellent, exceptional domain knowledge of the product that they have and the offer, the value that they're offering. Sometimes I think the challenge is, they don't understand the construction business, right? They understand the technology, they understand the value that the technology can bring, but they don't understand their customer, which is the construction company. The challenge what comes with that is, let's take software, for example. Software companies, right? If you look at their financials, if you look at how their growth is measured, it's measured, on a SaaS model, right? It's how many licenses can I sell, how many enterprise agreements I can get. And then their growth trajectory that a lot of VCs look at is, what does that hockey stick growth look like, right? But construction, it's a very project by project basis business model, right? Like our company runs on how many projects we can have, how many owners we can support.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
And so on. Sometimes the typical SaaS model and then the project, by project model, they clash. And this is kind of where we run into some challenges, with startups when they're wanting to scale very rapidly. I think, the biggest advice or thing I could say there is try to understand your customer a little bit, understand the construction market, what are the nuances of the construction market. Usually that's where sometimes I'll see some challenges, but other than that, founders are very bright and they're able to pick that up very quickly.
Do you think this is the missing part is lack of experience within the large organization like DPR is, for example, or just lack of construction related knowledge?
I think it's more the latter. The construction related knowledge sometimes has its own nuances, right? I'm very fortunate that, the role that I play for DPR, I feel like I'm effective because I had construction knowledge, because I was able to play all the roles in the company and I understand, I have a better understanding of what the needs are, right? And what the challenges are. And this is what helps me help solve their problems, right? And I think that's the missing piece is sometimes you kind of have to just go through, the motions and understand what the role is before you know how you can support it.
Mm-hmm. Kaushal, I'm very curious about innovation coming from DPR and that the ideas that you get from your team within innovation department within DPR. So maybe let me rephrase that. The investment that you make within the startup ecosystem, what's the percentage, more or less, are the startups that you got the ideas or problems fed from your innovation department?
If I understand your question correctly, you're saying how many ideas are proposed through the innovation group to the startup?
Yes. So the innovation department might come to you with a problem, or I'm just guessing. I actually don't know what the process is. So maybe we can touch on this, but I would guess the innovation people might come to you. Okay, we see that we would like to improve this area, and can you find us startups within this area, whatever it is? Does it work this way?
Actually, it works the other way around. I actually ask them to help me find a startup to help solve a problem. So the way our innovation group works is they, I'm speaking for my colleague here, Tim Gaylord, who leads the group. Every year we have a business analysis, where we a business assessment process where we understand, what are all the challenges and opportunities that the business units are trying to achieve. And from that process, we identify opportunities for the innovation group to help, solve using, third-party solutions. So the innovation team every year, does its own analysis of where challenges are at a macro level in the company. And then they identify startups to help solve those problems. And they do that by, doing proof of concept, or pilots, with those companies. And then once they scale, once we do, more than one project and they start showing value, this is where we evaluate them for, larger adoption.
Okay. And do you know what are the parameters by which they say that, okay, this is a problem? Because
if Kaushal, if you're telling them like what you need, where is that coming from? Like why do you think that that's a problem that needs to be solved?
Oh, got it. When I see the same request come from multiple business units, that's when it sort of bubbles up, right, as a challenge that not just one business unit is facing. Typically, this is the same sort of filter that we use on when to adopt something. If a problem is something that only, a handful of people are facing, right, then maybe it's not as big of a problem as, multiple regions or multiple projects facing it, right? And this is sort of where our team is very effective. We have a boots on the ground approach where we have an innovation leader in almost every region in this company. And they have a additional, layer where we support volunteer innovation leaders in every business unit. And so that's sort of our touch point to the projects and the business units. And those are our eyes and ears. And when something bubbles up, we hear from them, hey, this is a challenge. This is something that we need to face. Internally, we have a network where these folks communicate and share ideas and thoughts. And this is where, ideas and challenges bubble up for us to say, okay, this is a big challenge. When we start seeing pilot requests for the same challenge in multiple business units, this is where we investigate to understand, is this a big problem? Is this something that we're just not doing a good job of communicating of, how to solve the problem? This involves regional leaders in our company where we have that discussion with them and they provide feedback on, yep, makes sense, or no, not that big of a deal. So it's a collaboration with the business. It's also understanding, what's happening on our project through our network.
Yes.
As well as, doing some proof of concepts on our own.
So it sounds like it's like bottom up. The problems come from like the decentralized projects.
I'm not
and blah, blah,
dictating. I'm not dictating anything from top down. No, man. It's purely a bottom up grassroots type of an effort.
Yes.
So maybe let's talk about these challenges or problems. Like what sort of problems has recently come up, or like what are you guys thinking of solving by searching for startups?
One thing that, we've noticed is that construction procurement, seems to be still a challenge. Example, as of like 2 years ago, as early as 2 years ago, I would go to a project and I would still see project engineers trying to track what materials need to be procured and by when on an Excel sheet. And this is not just one project. Almost every project that I've been to, talked to project executives that help support these projects. And we felt like that's a problem, right? Nobody solved that. There's still an opportunity in the industry, right? There's a lot of tools out there, but there aren't tools that effectively help you manage, tracking which materials to procure, which days and which dates those materials need to arrive on site. And, and how the status changes when the construction schedule changes. So, we invested in this startup called Constructive IQ, and their job is purely to integrate, the submittal module, the construction schedule, and provide an analysis that says, hey, your activity has changed on the construction side. It is affecting your buyout of this material, which means you need to buy it out earlier, or it's going to arrive a little late because your schedule has affected it so much that there's not enough lead time to get that material on site. I think identifying, risks like that to a project is very important. Sometimes it gets missed. So construction procurement, I feel, is one area that, continues to be, an opportunity. I would say, AI is rapidly taking off. ChatGPT has actually brought a lot of attention, and awareness to what AI can do. But there are so many different types of AI that are out there. There's large language models, there's large vision models. Something new that I heard the other day about vectorizing AI, which I don't know very much about, but I'm curious to learn. And what I can say is, understanding how to truly leverage AI, it's you have to dive fully in, and I feel like there's a whole lot of opportunity there. Right? How to truly adopt a solution to maximize on the productivity for the company.
How about this? If you see a technology which seems like interesting and solving a problem about which you only started thinking that it actually can be a problem within your organization after finding out about the startup or the problem that they're solving, would you get interested and send it to your colleagues to take a look and perhaps to try it as a trial or just to see how it works within your organization?
We have done that. There are times that startups will come to me before the innovation team has had a chance to look at them. And it's just, simple as me connecting them with our innovation leaders and our innovation team. And then, we go through a normal vetting process where, primarily for construction software, startups, we go through a cybersecurity analysis. We have them sort of do this questionnaire that our IT group puts out. We also do a risk analysis of, is there a potential for this to open up some type of a, cybersecurity, risk for us. And at the end of the day, a lot of startups, they're not going to be 100%, cybersecurity compliant, right? So we're just trying to identify what risks are out there, and we do our best to try to pilot them, in a controlled environment. But for us, most of the time, when the startups come to me first, it's just an easy conversation with our innovation team to say, hey, let's try these guys out, somewhere on product.
Yeah. Can you share, you mentioned something logic, what was the name?
Constructive IQ.
Constructive IQ, sorry. Do you have I was close, IQ logic? Obviously my logic is not doing me any favors. Do you have any others, maybe more recent case studies about how the investment, how the problem was identified, and then how the founding team or the startup was then invested in, and then perhaps how it was rolled out within DPR?
Yeah, I'm also curious about the velocity. Is it 1 a year or 5 a year or 27?
I have one startup that I can share. They're actually doing very well, and we're actually deploying them on almost every single region. There's this company called Dusty Robotics. Dusty Robotics has been around since 2019, I believe, or maybe even sooner. I don't exactly know when they were founded, but 2019 is when we started working with them. Their robotic solution, basically, it's a robot that leverages CAD files, BIM models, right, to then perform layout, in the field. Think of it as basically a printer on wheels that draws whatever is on your plans. Early 2011, 2012, DPR actually invented their own robot. We invented a layout robot in 2013 where we developed 2 prototypes. We actually also secured the patent, for that technology. But the challenge for us was that we knew that we had to automate something that was very time consuming, right? And sometimes it could also have a lot of potential for human error. And the best way to do that was to, create a robot where you eliminate some of those errors and also increase productivity. That was our initial idea behind the robot that we developed. Unfortunately, software technology wasn't there, and the hardware technology for robotics probably wasn't as advanced as it is today. We ended up not being able to do anything with the robots that we developed, and we shelved the project. And then 6 years later, Dusty Robotics came out with a similar idea. They had a similar concept, similar idea of what they wanted to do, but their robots were a lot better than ours. And so the best thing that we could have done there is, we licensed our technology, our patent to them. We partnered with Dusty Robotics, and we try to do the best we could to, use their robots internally as well as support them externally, to grow, in the industry. I think we to date have about, I want to say 9 robots in our fleet. And we use them in almost every single region. This is a best practice for us at this point in terms of how we do layout.
Yeah.
It's a question on that. Why Dusty? I think there are a few companies providing this type of solution. Why did you choose Dusty?
They were one of the first ones that came out, actually. I think HP has a robot of their own. I think there's another one called Rugged Robotics, but I believe Dusty was out there first. And Dusty's technology actually aligned much closer to the concept that we had. Their vision for the robotic layout was very similar to the passion that we had as well. And so we saw a lot of alignment with that group.
Okay, so there wasn't like competition between 3 or 4, and then you chose the best.
We didn't. There wasn't a competition. And to answer your question, Martin, earlier, some of these things take a few years to play out, right? And sometimes, we may think there's a problem, and then the startup thinks there's a problem, and maybe those problems are not the same. Sometimes they are, and the only way we know, if we're aligned is just by working together.
Yeah, very interesting. Shout out to Tessa. I think we're releasing an episode with her next Wednesday.
Yeah, she's a great CEO.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a question while you're reading. Owen, what's the percentage of either turnover or profit being spent on innovation within DPR? If you can share anything on this.
I don't know if I have that number on top of my head. I can tell you, I have a high level number that I can, how much we've spent so far since 2011.
Whilst you're finding that, maybe Martin, you can try and guess what WND stands for.
WND.
Or DPR, in fact.
Don't embarrass me now. Obviously, it's probably a detailed project report, isn't it?
I'll help you out there, Martin. So DPR, it stands for Doug, Peter, and Ron. That's the first name and initials of the founders of the company. And
that's
then,
so funny.
WND actually is the last name initial, Woods, Nosler, Davidowski, of the same founder.
Okay, interesting.
So your question about investments in startups. So since 2011, when we founded the innovation team, we started WND in 2016, and then we started our R&D group in, I want to say 2021, 22. We spent about $60 million, in investments, R&D, and innovation. In terms of investments alone, I want to say we're somewhere in the $12 million, $11 million range of how many, checks we've written, startups that we've supported since 2016. We're part of 2 investments funds, with WND Ventures, where we participate as LPs in an external fund. And then I think innovation, R&D, that's roughly somewhere in the high 40s, $40 million plus range.
I'm very curious also, how do you guys learn about innovation? Is it only speaking to people, to startup founders, or like reading something? What's the way of acquiring the knowledge?
A lot of our innovation actually comes from within the business. Let me give you an example.
Maybe I was asking about the tools that are present on the market. How do you figure out the latest technologies and what's good, what's bad?
Yeah. Because I guess it's you want to go and get a reality capture solution, say. you have to sift through like all the marketing nonsense, and da 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 da. So
Mhm.
actually, and then
That's a good example.
yeah,
There's
to
a lot of
figure,
reality capture solutions. Yes, there are.
yeah,
We have a lot of, project teams that actually help us with this testing, right? A lot of times, I'll find that people have their preferences on what they like out of a solution, and usually it boils down to, is it going to help improve my day job, right? Is it going to help me do what I'm doing better and faster? Is it more accurate? Is it something, like the user experience? Is it something that is better than the other? Um, our team does not really pick and choose for the project. We actually support the project and they help us pick and choose by giving us feedback on what they're testing. So our program, the way it's designed is that, it's an open innovation platform where we allow project teams to request sometimes funding when they don't have funding, to test a solution, and we pay for that pilot or POC. And our ask is, as they're testing something that we've funded, that they, document what they're learning. We don't categorize pilots as successful or failures. We just say, hey, what have you learned from this experience? And that takes away sort of, the fear of doing something wrong. We don't want people to feel like, oh, hey, this thing wasn't successful, so it's a failure. We want them to just learn from the experience. And so we focus a lot on that. When that happens, reality capture, for example, we have tested multiple solutions, multiple competing solutions. And our job as an innovation team now is to look at it at a macro level and say, okay, what have we learned from each of these solutions? And then if we do a comparative analysis, this is where we identify which solution is the best solution. Even still, we will not say, thou shall not use these other solutions. We will still say, hey, if you're going to use something for reality capture, in our experience and our research, this one is the best based on our pilots.
yeah.
How do you set out the criteria for comparative analysis?
When we do pilot plans for each, of these tests, these POCs, in those plans, we document what metrics are we trying to take away, because each technology solution, they all have different ways of measuring successful, progress or success, right? And they're very sort of, bespoke, unique. I can't use the same metric for everything, right? So what we do is we ask the project teams to say, it's a simple question. How do you know you're going to be successful? How do you know that you've made an improvement? So what's your baseline? And what's the metric for improvement from that baseline? And we identify that with every single proof of concept that we do.
Okay, who is the best reality capture solution? You don't have to answer it. If it's like a conflict.
Well, actually, my wheels are turning because there's a lot. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Maybe there probably isn't a best one, right? It's just
they all have their strengths, right? Like there's a lot of different solutions that are out there. I will throw a plug for our portfolio company, Drone Deploy. We use them quite a bit. Actually, we were early investors in Construction Site, which is a 360, photo solution for projects. And then Drone Deploy and Construction Site merged. And so now we're investors in Drone Deploy. But we leveraged, UAVs for external reality capture. And now we have both internal and external with the same company.
It's interesting that you mentioned a second company, which is actually tangible, right? Drone Deploy. And Dusty, actually. What are your thoughts on like tangible hardware tech rather than just SaaS solution
point
in
solution.
the context of investing in construction tech?
Hardware solutions are very hard to take, to be successful. It takes a lot of upfront capital to get them, to a working product. Past the concept stage. It takes a lot of piloting. It takes a lot of sort of focused, concerted effort for them to be successful. And you have to be very selective on who you support in that stage, right? So for us, if we're looking at a hardware solution, it has to be a big enough problem that needs to be solved for us, right? Like layout, right? I gave you the Dusty example because that was something that we originally had a passion for, an idea for, and there was a strong alignment between us and Dusty Robotics team. The Hyperframe solution, which is another hardware solution, we wanted to support Hyperframe because self-perform, drywall is something that we self-perform, as a company. If you take a look at, our drywall portfolio, if we were to perform drywall commercially, we would be the second largest drywall company in the United States. That's how much volume that we have to our drywall group.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, being close to a technology like Hyperframe was important. So things like that, I think for us to stand behind a hardware solution has to be something that's a big enough problem that we need to be solving. Plus, the founder, for that company, we have to have a lot of trust and confidence in the founder and the founding team, because it's not an easy road, right? It takes a lot of effort and a lot of fundraising and a lot of capital to get that thing to be successful.
Mm-hmm. What's the ROI on Dusty or on Hyperframe, if you measure it?
ROI, okay, so two different. I think for both of them, they improve productivity. I'm blanking on the ROI for Dusty, but I want to say at least it's 6x in terms of productivity and layout productivity. I think for Hyperframe, it's close to 4x right now in how quickly we can install framing. So, I mean,
you are the first person who answered this question, giving
right?
giving the numbers.
Yeah, thank you. And what about the guys? Pricing models maybe you must have a preference, Kaushal, like what you think is, I don't know, the right way. Maybe you don't. But is there a way which perhaps DPR won't work with someone if they're charging you in a certain way, i.e., hey, you guys made 5 billion this year, therefore we're charging you 1.
It's a good question.
Are you talking about the startups pricing model?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah. There have been times where they've used our revenue as a a benchmark for them to price, and that has not worked out. We are actually not agreed to those deals in terms.
Oh my! It sounds like you could fit in there nicely.
Yeah.
I mean, it could fit into their business model, right? Like it'll help them.
Of course.
You're making more, so we should make more, but that doesn't work that way.
Well, do you have one that you think that like a type of pricing model that you prefer, perhaps,
or that feels reasonable in our industry?
Yeah, you as a customer as well.
It's a very, it's a tough question, Owen, because there's probably many different models that are out there, right? But I think the models that allow us to scale up and down, right, regardless of how they charge us, if it allows the ability to scale up and down proportionately, I think that's a good model. Sometimes I find pricing models, right, that may work for a lot of my mega jobs that can afford the technology, but that I can't deploy them on my $1-2 million quick hitting job because it's just not scalable down or up, right? And those models don't work for us because then it's hard for us to say how much can we deploy this technology, right? If it's not scalable upwards, I may never be able to use them as an enterprise solution. I might have to just deal with it on a project by project basis. So something that's scalable allows us to plan for it, and it's a more predictable cost that we can budget for.
Interesting. So perhaps instead of based on the turnover of a business, based on the cost of the project, or somehow like a base cost plus or minus the value of the project, or that's interesting to think about. I want to add anything else on this subject, Owen?
No.
I want to touch on, from founder's point of view, Kaushal, why should they work with you guys instead of with some other major US based largest contractor?
I will say our team is very open to helping startups. We are very founder friendly. We have a genuine interest in helping companies be successful, because not only we want to be using their products, but we also want others to use their products. And I will say that in terms of the network these days with construction companies, you could talk to my team, you can talk to our competitors' team, and you'll find a very similar approach. There might be some nuances in how we do the piloting and testing and whatnot, but I made a lot of friends in the industry, a lot of other, peers that do what I do. And I can tell you that, you won't find a whole lot of difference in how, we interact with each other and how we support the founders. It's a really nice thing to see. So for example, Martin, if I come across a technology that I think is very valuable and I can help them, I will refer them to, other, contractors that I have, friends with, like, Heads and Phelps, they're a good company. Suffolk's a great company. McCarthy, that's a great company. And I'm just kind of, throwing some names out there, but these are companies that we've piloted and partnered with in the past as well. Like Asphalt is a company out of the Southeast that we work with quite a bit. And we have similar philosophies on how to support these technologies. And very quickly amongst our network, peer network, we know if something's working or not, right? And when something works, it spreads very quickly. And not only do we want to use that solution, but, I think my friends want to use that solution too. So I'm happy to share with them.
Yeah, so you guys
Brilliant.
actually, it's kind of interesting to hear the collaboration. I would think that it would be like, we found the startup, but we're not telling you who they are. La 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 la.
No, it doesn't work that way, man. No, we're not. We don't do that. We
Right.
actually help each other out.
That's very nice.
But I will say though, we do have a lot of dedicated folks to innovation. I think we have a larger team compared to others. I think we're sitting at about 10 people now focused on innovation and ventures at DPR.
How many people was like 5 years ago, if you can recall?
Ooh, it was maybe less than half that. I think there was like 4 or 5 people 5 years ago.
And when I'm just very curious, what's the reason for more people? Is it like you are more focused on, you want to implement more tech, or maybe some other reasons?
We're trying to grow with the company, so 5 years ago, we weren't I think we were like a $7 or $8 billion company. Before that, we were, maybe a $6 billion company. And at the 6 billion mark, I feel like, 4 or 5 people was adequate to support what the business needed. But today as a 12,000, employee company, it's just tough to support everybody through, a small team. So, we created some diversity within our group as well, right? We have some folks focused on R&D. We have some folks, that are like myself and focused on venture capital. And then majority of the group is focused on supporting the business and the business's ideas on how they want to try things. And you can't, pilot something over a Zoom call. You have to be there in person. So this requires us to have folks that are, sitting physically in the regions where they can just, drive up to a project and support the project team in person. Our model is just sort of, you got to meet people where they are. And sometimes it requires you to go to the job site to meet them.
Brilliant. Oh, and last question each.
Yeah, you go first because I had one and now I've lost it.
Okay.
And it was a really good one too.
Well.
Oh boy.
Okay. So, what's the one lesson that you took from Air Force into construction?
Discipline
Good
and
one.
attention to detail. I think, in order for any of these things to work, you have to have discipline and you have to pay attention to the details. Sometimes the smallest details can bite you, right? So, an example would be, when we're talking about collaborating and sharing IP with startups, right? There might be IP that we might not retain as a business and hold on to because it's more important to us to not give that away, right? If we're not paying attention to these contractual agreements, I can give that away without even realizing it. So that attention to detail, right, is something that I pay very close attention to. With piloting, and when we do proof of concept, in order for that to work really well, you have to have discipline. You can't try it one way on this project and another way on a different project, right? In order to get an apples to apples comparison, you have to do the same way every single time. And that discipline sometimes takes a while.
That's very insightful, actually. Okay. Mine was actually going to be on the previous question was about that. You said the innovation department had grown. Do you foresee it growing further?
If we double in size as a company, yeah, probably. I think it's important, Owen, to, there's a lot of things to look at, right? Like if we grow into a business that has, let's say, 20,000 employees, right? Can I still support that? I think the answer I have to be able to answer the question I have to really answer is, can I really support the company with what I have? And if my answer is no, then yeah, I need to grow, right? And what are the factors? What are the things that I'm looking at that need to be supported? If I'm supporting every single business unit and every single employee, then I need to staff up to be able to do that. Because if I'm not, our innovation team, they're burning out. I don't want them to burn out. Our ability to truly support the business, and I got to be mindful of that. So, we have to look at what is it that we're trying to support, and always evaluate, can our team do that without their bandwidth being affected.
Ooh. All right, Kaushal, looks like we should wrap up here. Could you tell us where people could, I'll give you two options. You can either tell people where, and you could do both if you want, where they could find out more about you, or where they could find out perhaps more about WND, and how do you guys, how do people get in contact with you if they're considering you as an investor?
Yeah, there's I think the easiest way is go through our website, right? dpr.com/WND-Ventures. If you go to our dpr.com website, actually, you'll see the homepage right now is showing, one of our most recent awards with Fast Company. We made the list for best workplace for innovators. And on there is a link, through all the case studies and pilots that we've done. And there's also a link in there to get in touch with me. LinkedIn is also another good way to get in touch with me. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep up with the messaging on there, but I will get back to you if you contact me there.
Feel it.
Keep persistent.
Very good. Thanks, Kaushal.
Thanks, Kaushal. Very insightful.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.